Steven Spielberg presents The Goonies, a Richard Donner film.
Time, chunk.
Hey, Mike found the map. Whoa, do you guys realize what we could do? I don't want to go on any more of your crazy Goonie adventures.
Meet Mikey,
I gotta go to the bathroom.
Brand, Andy,
Shame. Come on, Brad. Slip her the tongue.
That's disgusting. No, I can't even look.
Mouth,
I gotcha. Now get out from behind her. You're ruining the painting. You're ruining my joke.
Stephanie, Data,
Booty banger. Oh, guys, isn't that neat?
and Chunk.
Sloth.
They call themselves The Goonies. They've stumbled onto a legend, but they're not alone.
Chunk, I hope that was your stomach.
No. That's the it. Sounds like Kong.
Discover what they uncover.
Rubies and emeralds and diamonds.
The lost map.
Oh, it's the start of the tunnel.
The secret caves.
Hey, Mikey! You can hear me! Run! Run! They're coming after you! Chugging!
The hidden clues.
Mikey!
The treacherous traps.
Hello, Sheriff. I'm at the Lighthouse Lounge, and I want to report a murder.
Just like that last prank about all those little creatures that multiply when you throw water on them.
Take the oath.
They're here! Somebody's coming!
Join the adventure as Steven Spielberg presents The Goonies, a Richard Donner film.
Heyo!
Hello.
Welcome to Movie Umpers. My name is Bob Sham.
I'm Angela.
And Goonies never say die. And the sounds you hear may be dogs. It is Comfort Food Month all November long. We're dealing with it in two ways. On Mondays, we talk about more nostalgic drops from our childhood. Movies that meant a lot to us, at least at the time, and we're reevaluating them now to see how well they hold up.
Movies from our childhood.
Yes. And also, movies in which actors play people with intellectual disabilities throughout the other parts of the month. This movie covers both. Of course, Sloth is a man who, I guess they dropped him on his face, didn't they? Twice?
They talk about that at the end, that she dropped him once or twice on his head.
She was soothing him for a second, and then she said she was singing Rockabye Baby, and when she gets to the part,
when the bar breaks, the cradle will fall.
Break! Fall!
I only dropped you once. Well, maybe twice.
you know, we've had some folks this month who, you know, ranging with the mentality of like a 5 to a 12, 13-year-old. Where would you rank almost called him Sludge. Sloth.
You know, I don't think I can, because I don't think he has yet reached his potential in this movie. I think he
actually may be more like an X-Man, like an evolved human.
X-Men. Mom, you've been bad.
Sure, but
He's
I just mean,
very
I
strong.
think he has the ability to learn a lot. I just don't think he's been taught anything. He's learned everything from television.
Yeah.
But he has a good heart, and he's in what's the word I'm trying, not inventive, but he's
Intuitive?
Ingenuity. He has ingenuity?
He does?
Listen.
When he rode the cells
down the sail
like Errol
Captain
Flynn?
Blood.
He was watching Captain Blood in his cell in the basement. Was that on Were they watching
Dungeon.
were they watching like a video? No, they wouldn't put a VCR in the
this
dungeon room in 1985. That's high-end entertainment equipment back
This was
then.
the early 80s. It was probably just on television.
He was watching it on afternoon television, Captain
Yeah.
Blood.
So
We're talking about the Goonies.
we're talking about the Goonies.
Directed by Richard Donner from 1985. Our third Richard Donner movie.
Richard Donner.
As he directed Superman, and also we talked about his Donner cut of the Superman 2, though two directors get credit for that, Richard Donner being one. Written by Chris Columbus and story by Steven Spielberg, starring a whole mess of folks, and we'll try to remember all their names. Sean Astin is Mikey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Josh Brolin is Brand. Jeff Cohen is Chunk. Chunk would go on to be an entertainment lawyer. He's not an actor anymore. I actually know someone whose sister married him, from a long-ass time ago. Corey Feldman is Mouth.
This was peak Corey Feldman.
Kei Kwan is Data. Carrie Green is Andy, and we cannot remember Martha Plimpton's name. We'll call her Young Angela.
I did identify most with her.
Anne Ramsey played Mrs. Fratelli, who is constantly beating and screaming at her sons, which is pretty funny. The Fratellis are insanely stupid.
Yes.
And they escape from prison, and they go hide out in this little shack, and they don't realize. And that's over the start of a path to, a treasure.
Yeah, they have no idea. They're sitting on top of a treasure. They think they're just hiding.
Look, the Goonies, we all know this movie. We're going to just talk about the things that stick out the most in our minds and probably stick out the most in your minds. Give you a little fresh information on it, perhaps. But we're not going to go path by path we're running, like I'm the dungeon master running, recapping the whole adventure. The Goonies has become multi-generational at this point. There's something about it that has kind of maintained throughout pop culture, especially the Sloth Chunk dynamic.
Yes.
Though I will say, when we first met Sloth and he was chained up, I was kind of surprised at how profoundly sad I was.
Yeah.
Because we know Sloth, he ain't the most handsome fellow, but he's like the most pure-hearted in the whole movie, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you see him all chained up by his own family, so he's Sloth Fratelli. That's his name.
Yeah.
Wow.
That part is just horribly sad.
When we meet folks, there's Rube Goldberg machines involved. They need a Rube Goldberg machine to allow Chunk into Mikey's house. But also, he has to do the truffle shuffle, the infamous truffle shuffle.
And I'm assuming, Data.
Yeah.
Kei Kwan.
Did he set that Rube Goldberg contraption up for them?
Because it's all the stuff that he does. He at one point, I love when he, he zip lines.
He zip lines
from his
into
house
the
to their house. So he lives next door. And so he zip lines and they're yelling open the screen door. And he busts through. But he's so inventive, but it's always kind of going a little bit wrong.
Yeah.
But he had to have built that.
This neighborhood of Astoria, Oregon, at least this area, they call it the Goondocks. They are a gang called the Goonies. I wanted nothing more in my life but to be a Goonie when I was a kid. I was obsessed. You picked this for nostalgia, but it's as good as if I picked it as well. It does linger strongly in my mind from my childhood. It was just one of those movies you emulated. You'd bury something and you'd draw a map to find it. But I'm the only kid in my house, so I'm burying and finding the treasure. It was like I couldn't drop a piece of paper in front of my grandma and try to be like, what is this? Convince her to go find my treasure. Nah, she wasn't. She had to watch Mama's Family. She wasn't going to do all that shit.
Yeah.
But there are things you catch as an adult that are like, what? This movie is definitely, we were the target audience at our age when we watched this when we were kids. And though by modern standards, it might be a little scary, but I don't think it's any scarier than reality, truly. But
sure.
But it's just a lot of the adventure elements are scary, and the way it's shot with leading up to the Sloth stuff. Even as a kid, I remember until you connect with Sloth and Chunk together, Sloth is scary until you get to that point.
Well, and I think some of the stuff, how scary it really was over my head. You know, like watching it this time, you know, when they're at the gorgeous bone organ, and Andy like has to play all the right chords. Every chord she gets wrong, part of the floor drops. It looks so cool.
That's a that's a Dungeons and Dragons puzzle for sure.
Totally. But in that moment,
yeah,
it now way more scared than I probably was when I was a kid. Because when you're a kid, you're like, oh no. But now I'm like, they could actually die. Like if that actually happened, you know, like there's guns and stuff. Like it just didn't.
That part where the Data falls and the pinchers of peril flip up and he's like sproings. There's a lot of like kind of Looney Tune kind of old,
especially with
sense
him.
of humor with that.
When he opens his jacket and the punch comes out and like hits the guy in the balls.
But this town is in peril, or this neighborhood, because all these houses are in foreclosure, and Troy's dad, the richest guy in Astoria, Oregon, is going to expand his country club into a golf course where the Goondocks neighborhood is.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to happen tomorrow.
How the fuck does this work?
I don't know.
Like, is Troy's dad working for the government of Israel?
Maybe he bought all their mortgage loans. Oh, yeah.
Is he working for Israel? Is the country of Israel forcing these people out of their homes? Are they building settlements all around the Goondocks in between these houses and isolating them almost as though it's an interior archipelago of houses surrounded by hostile forces? Is that what's happening here? Yeah, they're getting kicked out of their house.
Maybe he bought their mortgage loans.
Don't sell it to them, fools. Well, you're positing that maybe he spiked up the...
Yeah, if he bought their mortgage loans, he could have spiked them. Because, you know, back then, there was not, like...
But you would still have to get them to... There's no logic here.
No, there's not. But in reality, if you were going to do it, you would have to somehow get in with the bank. I mean, it's corrupt. It would have to be corrupt. You'd either have to get in with the government or the bank and do something to, like, their taxes or their mortgage rates or something.
It's insane. They would have to
declare the land like not livable. You know, like there'd have to be something. But they posit that all they need is money, and
the fact that the rest of this town doesn't even come out in support of this neighborhood that's going to be bulldozed is.
I think they want the country club.
This town sucks. Also, everyone in this town is an idiot. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Mikey's dad, he works for the museum, but he can't fit. They don't have their own storage facility at the museum. I don't know what the museum shows, Northwestern pirate shit, but Mikey's dad, if stuff can't fit in the museum, what does he do? He puts it in his attic. Centuries old artifacts are just in Mikey's attic the whole fucking time.
What if over time his dad has just been stealing?
I kind of like that better.
Like he's like, I'm just gonna take this one home and clean it in my off time. No, I don't think he's gonna clean it.
Black market?
I don't think he's gonna sell it. I think that he just wants it. He is Mikey's dad, right? Yeah. So like it's the kind of thing you could see an adult Mikey doing, being like, you don't think this is cool enough to put in the exhibit? I'm just gonna take it home and I'll like look through it later. And then doesn't ever have time because he's a dad who's worried about like the whole town taking his house.
But if that were, I mean, if he's stealing it, yes.
Maybe not stealing, but maybe they don't realize how much he has.
But there are people who curate these things and are like, no, you can't have this centuries old piece of work in your attic. Like
but if he's the boss of the museum, there's no one to step up.
I think it's nice that
history, and no one gives a shit, obviously, because they're going to tear out the town.
They don't give a fuck about this neighborhood in their own town getting bulldozed for a golf course.
The other parents are doing nothing.
Nobody's doing anything.
Only Mikey's dad, but they're like, my dad's going to figure it out. But then they drive by his dad at one point, and he's just like on a ladder. I don't know what he was doing.
We swear we're going to compliment this movie, but we got to get some things off the top. She's trying to kind of help explain this, but it makes no sense. It's as though the writer was like it was written by a kid, and they were like, The witch man, he gonna buy the neighborhood.
Here's the deal.
And he gonna bulldoze the house and they gotta save it.
It sounded like you said the witch man.
The witch man. I have a speech, this child character has a speech impediment.
I got you. I was gonna say.
The witch man gonna come to our neighborhood.
Well, okay, here's the deal. It doesn't need to be explained. because it is a movie about kids for kids, and that is about as well as we would have understood it when we were kids. I don't even know if I really understood.
It didn't matter when we were kids.
I just knew that Troy's dad was bad, and I knew they were going to have to leave, and that Data was going to have to move to Detroit, and no one knew where the hell Detroit was.
What mattered when we were kids was that bone organ was cool. The well thing.
And they got to find the rich stuff.
Data's got the gadgets. There's a fucking pirate ship. And Sloth is actually cool.
Mm-hmm. And
that's what
James
mattered
Brolin,
to us as kids.
James Brolin on a 6-year-old's bike.
Yeah, that too. I actually forgot about that scene. It's been so long since I've seen this.
Also, James Brolin's character could have legit died before he ever even got to the Fratellis.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been a different movie if, like, he actually, like, you saw him fly into the woods and you never see him again. And then the mother meets the Goonies on the beach after they escape from the cove.
And it's like, where's
and
your
there's
brother?
like, by the way, we found your brother dead. What a weird...
Also,
that would have been a different movie.
If this movie was made today...
And Troy killed him.
Someone would have at least hurt themselves.
Yeah.
Someone would have broken their arm. They would have had to bandage up a leg. Something would have happened.
I don't know. We're not watching the kid movies. What are they doing Shark Boy and Lava Girl, you know? I don't know. We're not watching those now.
I don't know. We're not.
But... There's a lot of cutscenes from this movie, and I do want to touch base on a few of them. And there is one in which this is after Mikey finds the map in the attic, falling out the back of the picture. And there's this one cutscene where they're all in this convenience store, and like half the cast is in the store, and it's establishing these relationships that everyone has with each other, including Troy. And a lot of it is like pretty much you didn't need to put it in the movie, but there was one part in that cutscene where Mikey is comparing the map he found with an actual map of the town that he finds in the store, and he uses it to narrow down the location to where the treasure should be.
That needed to be in the movie.
Because it seems that if you put that in there, it would have made it much less vague, because the way Mikey's tracking it down before is he's like, he'll walk out into the coast and be like, there's the 3 rocks, and you're looking at the scene and I'm seeing like 7 rocks.
Well,
like,
but also, they've just been riding their bikes, and they just randomly stop and go, I think it's those 3 rocks.
Yeah,
and
totally.
You're like, why did you even stop here?
I'm literally like, which 3 rocks?
I know.
But he manages to, he knows, he can identify what rocks they are based on the map and the location of everything.
Which is so smart.
Which seems to be a little more, lends it to like the path that they go on a little more. But they have that doubloon and they line it up with certain rocks and to figure out exactly where they need to go. But they realize they need to go to a fucking old restaurant, and that old restaurant happens to be built right over the beginning of the path of this path to treasure. And there's another guy, what's his name? Cobblepot, this explorer? Copperpot. And they find
Chester Copperpot.
They find his body pretty early on into the trail when they get in there.
He didn't get very far. He didn't even get to the wishing well.
The crew ends up going into, it's a weird scene where the Fratelli mother is like trolling the kids, even though she needs they killed someone and they stored him in their freezer.
Yeah.
But it's a weird thing where she's just kind of like picking on these kids.
Supposed to be water? It's wet, ain't it?
They're going to blow your cover.
It just goes into like the ridiculousness of it. Like, it does feel more cartoony, or
it's definitely very
very
zany,
jokey. Like, she brings them water and it's
word.
like brown.
Yeah.
You know? And Mouth is always making some smart ass comment about something. So he's kind of like the commentary going on, and Mikey's like the heart of it. Brand is the strong one. Andy's the whiny one. Martha Plimpton is the concerned one. Chunk is the hungry one. Data's the smart one. You know, like, it's just...
The core Goonies are the Sean Astin, Jeff Cohen, Corey Feldman, Kei-Wei Kwan.
Yeah.
And then Josh Brolin, Cary Green, and Martha Plimpton kind of jump in later.
They're the high school kids.
And Chunk gets separated, and they go into the path, but they kind of get stuck because the Fratellis are coming and going.
Yeah.
And Chunk gets caught after he's trapped in a freezer with the dead body, which he seems stuck and then just opens it up.
Just opens the door. Again, another very, like, cartoony situation. But they actually tell him, like, go to the cops. And honestly, if Chunk wasn't a little liar...
Right.
They might have gotten some help.
Trunk-
But he called the cop, and the cop was like,
doesn't believe
"You
him.
always making up stuff."
Chunk is like the town prankster.
The kids don't even believe him. Like, he'll call the police station and tell him crazy things.
Chunk's kind of, he's a real bad kid. This is kind of kid that like maybe would fake his own death for a laugh, or
Sure.
he's going to do something that gets someone hurt. This Chunk.
Well, not now.
I think Sloth.
Now he's a changed
Sloth leveled him out.
person.
He gave him a purpose.
Yes. Because he's going to be taking care of Sloth for the rest of their lives.
So the Fratellis very easily get Chunk to tell the whole thing, and they throw him into the room with their brother Sloth, and that's how we get the Sloth Chunk dynamic.
And they bond over chocolate.
Yeah.
Baby Ruth.
And then Sloth breaks out with his sad big man strength and frees Chunk, and they become pretty fast friends. And so they're following the Fratellis. The Fratellis are between Sloth and Chunk and the Goonies.
Yes.
And we won't go into every bit of detail here, but we got the wishing wells where Corey Feldman takes his wish back.
This one right here. This was my dream, my wish. And it didn't come true. So I'm taking it back. Taking them all back.
Maybe someone should wish to not lose your neighborhood.
I think that's what it was.
Oh, that was.
I think that's what I always have thought. This is my wish and it didn't happen, so I'm taking it back. And then when he dives into the water, I don't know, but when I was a kid, that was like really impactful to me.
Yeah.
Because it was like, oh yeah.
Set,
you don't always get what you want.
The sets in this movie are fucking great. Like, it's like the best part.
The sets are gorgeous.
The tone, the atmosphere, the way
really feels like
it
they're
evokes the
underground.
sense of adventure.
Yeah.
A lot of things don't make sense getting from A to B, but like once you're really into the groove of what's going on, it really is a really fun movie. Mm-hmm. But there's a part when they get started in which they're in the tunnel that's going through the town, and there's pipes and stuff that are all in the tunnel, mm-hmm. and they manipulate the pipes, and they're affecting things that are happening in buildings. They're popping things up into golf courses. But this implies that this path has already been discovered by plumbers or guys that dig for pipe.
The area has been, but obviously whoever went down there just didn't like go off on any side trails.
And the wishing well, everyone knows the wishing well is there. They put that well up, but
that could have been there for a long time.
No doubt. But like no one thought like, let's go down in this well because the trail just.
Why would you go down in a well?
Well, I think you kind of have to understand the well to build around it. You'd have to be able to know what's going on in it. But I'm just saying, it seems like plenty of people. This is why this town is really stupid.
Yeah.
So maybe plumbers dug for this, laid some pipe, and they were like, I think I found that treasure route that we've all been hearing about as we were kids. And they decided to go, but they died on the treasure. Maybe they didn't get past the bone organ. You know?
Maybe they fell. Well, no one would have put it back up. No one has ever gotten to the bone organ because they
got crushed by the rocks. They got crushed by rocks then.
Well, the one skeleton that we saw was Chester Copperpot. He's the one who got the farthest before them, and he didn't even get to the wishing well. One of my favorite parts, and also personally terrifying for me, is when they have to walk over the like tree stump.
Yeah.
And Data does his slick shoes.
Yeah.
And he like shoots oil, and they're like, just come on. He's like, no, I got this. Because he's so clever. And that's one of the times that his stuff just like works.
Data is saving himself and this crew like at least 3 times over.
Yes.
And Data is the most memorable. Data was the coolest one.
He really was.
I did connect with Mikey because I was asthmatic and he has an inhaler.
Yeah.
But I was really, in real life, more of a Mikey Chunk hybrid. But to me, as a kid, Data was the coolest one.
Yes.
Because he had all this cool shit.
Well, and personally, I thought
Mr. Gadget, essentially.
Well, I thought that Ke-Huy Quan was one of the coolest people in the world because he was in Indiana Jones and the Goonies.
I don't think I made that connection.
You didn't? Oh, see, I did.
As a kid, I don't think I did.
Because that was my favorite Indiana Jones movie was The Temple of Doom. And I watched that one so much more than anything else. And the reason I liked it was because there was a kid in it.
Yeah.
You know, because my parents were watching that kind of stuff all the time. But that was what drew me the most to it, was because there's this kid who's also in the Goonies. Like, I don't know. I just loved him.
But yeah.
And I'm glad he's back now.
They're up, yeah. He was probably...
I hope we see him a lot more.
He was probably the best part of everything.
He was the best part.
We gave it a little bit above middling score. We weren't as hot on it as most people, but he was good in that. So the kids go on their romp and adventure while the Fratellis are dumb as shit and getting their nuts racked from Slick Shoes, getting punched with the boxing gloves that come out of his jacket.
So there's the Rube Goldberg machine at the beginning. There's all the stuff that Data does. And then on top of that, there's all of the booby or booty traps that One Eyed-Willy has set. And, you know, this whole time, Mikey's like searching for the rich stuff, but he's also searching for Willie.
Yeah.
He's like so intrigued.
Because Willie's the first Goonie.
Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting too, because when they do finally get to the ship and they find he comes face to face with Willie, obviously there's like this touching moment where he's like talking to Willie and like, you're the first Goonie and we're like the same and all of this. And he lifts up his patch and he sees that he really didn't have an eye. And that was so fucking cool. Yeah. They start to like grab stuff and he's like, don't take the gold off the scales. That's for Willie. And whether or not he thought it might have been booby trapped, it was almost like because he had so much reverence for Willie. He respected him enough in the way that I guess Willie wanted to be respected, that they didn't knock off the last final booby trap.
You gotta respect the One-Eyed-Willy. And in the porn parody Poonies, One-Eyed-Willy plays a much larger role.
This is a movie inherently about children, Bob.
Not the porn parody.
Okay.
They're all legal in that one.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of great
It's
stuff.
the adults trying to save the town.
There's a lot of great stuff. That part where the pirate ship was also a cool thing in my mind, seeing all that scene and seeing him meeting Willie. But when the director, he made sure that the kids did not see the pirate ship until it was time in their story to see it. They wanted their initial reactions to be like literal reactions.
That's awesome.
And apparently they maybe had to recut parts of the reaction because the instinct that the kids had when they turned around and saw it was to like yell things like holy shit and stuff like that. Like, I mean, when you stumble across an actual big ass pirate ship, you'd probably be like, what the fuck? You know?
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
So that's kind of a fun story. But you might remember at the end when they're recounting some of their adventures, that Data says
the octopus was very scary. Yeah, it was very dangerous.
I always just thought he was making up something.
Which
didn't make any sense.
There is a scene in which Mouth and Martha Plimpton is upset at Mouth because something's touching her legs and she thinks it's him. And it turns out it's a giant octopus. And this is a part where Data saves the day again. And he saves the day by going underwater. He starts a Walkman. He presses play on a Walkman that's playing the song 8 Arms to Hold You by the Goon Squad.
And I remember noticing it in the credits and going like,
yeah,
I don't remember that. That would have been a perfect octopus thing.
There's a whole video to this song that has like a stop motion octopus like all over it. So he shoves the Walkman while he's playing the tape into the beak mouth of the giant octopus, and the octopus just like with this song playing inside of it just kind of like backs up and backs off. And I don't think it would have hurt the movie to have much in it, but if that scene was in the movie, and you can go online and see the scene quite easily, if that scene was in the movie and you ask yourself, what was the fakest looking part of the movie? You probably would have said the octopus. But I guess they just forgot to take out the line later where Data's like, man, that thing with the octopus, or whatever he said about it. Well, the Fratellis catch up and they get the kids to jump off into the water and shit. and then Sloth and Chunk show up, and this is quite funny where, well, Sloth, he rides down the cell like Errol Flynn, we talked about that, but there's a part where the Sloth rips his shirt open to reveal a Superman shirt, and then the Superman, I mean, Richard Donner, this is Richard Donner making this movie, and so that's when the Fratellis are like,
we're in deep shit now, Francis.
Oh, shit.
He found a clean Superman shirt, so it's game fucking over.
I think they just realize in that moment that they know how strong he is, and he doesn't need them. He has new friends, and he has, like, I think they're just scared that he could hurt them. They've been terrible to him.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't he hurt them?
But you figured he would just do it anyway. But like, it wasn't until he whooped out the Superman shirt that they were like, I think we might be in trouble. You know. So Sloth helps the kids escape in a sad moment where he tells Chunk he loves them. The Fratellis, they get snared in by the One Eyed-Willy traps in there. And so the whole thing, the cove starts to collapse, and the ship a hole is breaking for the ship to sail through. And there's a shot where the Fratellis, they've taken over the ship, and yeah, things are collapsing, but you figured they would go into the ship, but for some reason you see them stand on the plank, and they fall into the water. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you're really paying attention, a lot of this movie doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, unless they just thought it was all going to fall on them, so they were trying to get away. But you would think they would have stayed with the gold no matter what.
Yeah, try to figure that out.
Out of their character to run from the gold.
And rocks are hitting the ship, but ultimately we know by the end that it's fine because it sails out, which is a really cool thing when you see the pirate ship sailing off into the bay.
It is so cool, but then they're like, goodbye, Willie. And it's like, nah, get a boat. There's billions of dollars out there.
Of course, somebody's getting that gold. And they're all acting like, well, there's not shit. I mean, this is the dumbest town in America.
Maybe that's the sequel.
The dumbest, most
go find the boat.
unhelpful town. That would be a decent, like, the boat was gone and they couldn't find it. So they're older now and they're trying to hunt down the one.
Where did the boat go?
That's actually a decent outline for the sequel. So the kids reunite with their parents. They're all there. And we can't get the kids to drive up into safety. The dad has to finish signing over the fucking whole neighborhood.
Because it's the next morning.
It's down to the one dad to sign this whole thing over. But then Mikey realizes he has a bag of jewels that he forgot. He filled his little bag with jewels.
The like housekeeper person that the mom hired to help them pack up the house the day before they were going to get evicted. Finds it and opens it, and then she runs. I'm
assuming one jewel covers per house.
It was like emeralds and rubies and diamonds.
I don't know how much those are in and of themselves.
It's like a handful.
It looked like costume jewelry, truly. But this is enough to save the neighborhood, and it's enough
forever.
It's enough to convince everyone witnessing, including the rich guy, Troy's dad, who may or may not work for the IDF, to be like, damn, they bought this neighborhood. I almost made his dad sign the papers on the beach, which would have covered multiple houses.
I don't know how he's signing away everybody for everything. Get
your kids to safety first and get to like a table or something.
Absolutely. But also at the beginning when it was like, my dad's going to figure out something. He's going to save the town. I just still can't get over it. Like, he is a museum curator. He's not the mayor. He's not the sheriff. He's not even a lawyer.
I think this is a real town, and it is the dumbest town in America. So if you're from Astoria, Oregon, I'm sorry, Goonies did not pay. You guys don't take care of each other. You fucking are. You just watch a fucking pirate ship full of gold just float off. You do nothing about it.
Oh, and
get your shit together.
Apparently, Sloth is just going to go live with Chunk's family. He just decided.
You're going to live with me now. Yeah, I'm going to take care of you. Because I love you.
Oh, I love you, Chunk.
Oh, I love you, Sloth.
You're going to live with me now.
And Mikey, who has an inhaler, at the end, he's like, I don't need this anymore. And he throws the inhaler and was like, bro, you still have asthma.
Yeah.
All right. But adventure.
Just because you had an adventure.
Adventure cures asthma.
You kissed a girl.
Yeah. Adventure
That's
cures.
That's a whole other dumb scene we don't have to get into.
Yeah, that was stupid. But But the sheer fun is still there. The sense of adventure is still there. The sets and all the stuff is like, it's still when I was a kid, I wanted to be a Goonie so fucking bad. I wanted to play on the bone organ, run around on a pirate ship. I would have just loved the fuck out of that. And I think a lot of kids of our generation felt the same way.
Yeah.
This is just one. If you ask kids of our the older millennial, Gen X millennial crossover crowd especially, you tell them to name their top movies, and this is going to be in the top 10 somewhere, guaranteed.
From their childhood?
For most kids.
Yes.
And it's still fun, but with adult eyes, you find yourself asking a lot of questions into the conceit of the plots. But the people involved knew that, this is for kids to just soak in the adventure. It's not for adults to be like, that's not how that works.
Oh, no. No.
Though plumbers did discover this secret treasure route a long time ago. This town just dug open this thing and was like, well, I don't know what this tunnel's going to, but let's lay the pipe here.
You know what this does, though? It follows that 80s trope of the kids know what they're doing and all the parents are stupid.
That's true.
It is a very 80s thing. And I don't even think my parents were questioning those kind of things when we were kids. I'm sure they weren't thinking about it. They were just glad that we were watching something and not bothering them.
It's true. These are some dumbass adults all throughout the movie.
All 80s, all the John Hughes stuff, like so many 80s movies are just about parents being not there.
Yeah.
Or stupid. Ferris Bueller, even all of it.
So fun to revisit this one. I did enjoy it to a degree, but how do we think about it now? You're going to give 1 through 5. I'm going to give 1 through 5 combined for best out of 10. Mm-hmm. What do you, looking back into your adult self, looking at the Goonies, taking it full on as a story, as a film, performances, where do you fall in the rating?
I am going to give it a 3.75 because I think it still is so good, and there were things that I picked up on that I never had before, which we're going to do with all these movies we haven't watched since we were kids, of course. But it is still magical. It is still scary. It's still wonderful.
Oh, a high point in 80s kids' adventure, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Combine this with Indiana Jones, and that was kids thinking about things in a whole different way and that kind of stuff and what we were into. And,
yeah.
I'm going to give it a 3.5, just a 0.25 under you. I think that's still a good score. It's still a solid movie and of its time and of its kind. But there is there's just some certain leaps you need to get there, and it's far from perfect, but it's still a good movie. Take a look at it. We'll put it above Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I do think it's a better movie than that one.
Yes.
The Goonies by Richard Donner, 7.25. I think that's a worthy score, worthy of a cult classic. A cult classic with a $19 million budget that made $125 million.
Amazing.
So, yeah, it worked. Amblin Entertainment on this piece. So, check the show notes for links to other places to find us. Comfort food all month long. What'd you think of the Goonies? We didn't go bit by bit. We didn't split hairs on this. You know this movie. But it was fun to revisit it. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Say whatever you want, so long as it's not, hateful or anything. And, we love you forever, and we will talk to you very soon. It's Thanksgiving week, and I got more to say about that this Wednesday.
Life to all lovers.
You try to make your boss look a little bit rugged.